Have you ever watched a Disney movie and felt like you've seen it all before? Not just that, oh, this movie has that familiar Disney look and feel, but more like,
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
well, guess what? That gut feeling is right on because you actually have been watching the same scenes repeated in different movies. There was a time in Disney history before films could be bought and sold commercially and compared to one another. Disney's animation department would tend to borrow and reuse scenes and sequences from previous films and animations. Let's take a closer look at some of these reused animation scenes from classic Disney films. Starting with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs versus Robin Hood versus Jungle Book. Snow White is the first full-length Disney animated feature film and the earliest Disney animated feature film ever created. So it's no wonder Disney decided to take some of the classical animated drawings and revamp them into a newer animated feature. Maid Marian didn't just imitate Snow White's moves, but both movies' party scenes are completely identical. Disney simply traced Marian over snow and assumed fans wouldn't mind reliving the dance. But here's a copy that might just have went over the head. Almost 30 years after Disney created the scene of Grumpy the Dwarf in Snow White getting annoyed and stomping off under the bridge, they reused it all over again in the Jungle Book.
This is the clearest video I've ever seen. This is the most HD ever. This is 4K. How did they get you in 4K? That ain't me.
Bagheera hitting his head on the log is exactly identical to Grumpy. This process is called rotoscoping, which helped the company not only save time, but save money and perhaps in the long run brainwash little girls and boys with the same fairy tale story over and over again. Robin Hood versus Jungle Book. If you pay close attention to scenes from Robin Hood and the Jungle Book, there is clearly a side-by-side comparison. There is a close-up of Little John's head as he dances, which is an identical shot of Baloo dancing in the famous Jungle Book scene. Pretty identical. The Jungle Book and Winnie the Pooh are also great examples of Disney reusing old scenes. When Christopher Robin climbs up a rock, you'll get a deep sense of déjà vu if you've ever seen the Jungle Book. That's because Christopher's movements are the same as Mowgli's in the Jungle Book. They both climb up some cliff, bending down as they reach the top to steady themselves, and they both throw a stone in the exact same sequence while holding a twig. Now here's one that you probably didn't notice unless you have a keen eye and good observation. What's the similarity between Cinderella and 101 Dalmatians? Nothing at first sight. But look again. The chase scene from Cinderella when Lucifer the cat gets scared by Bruno is exactly identical to Sergeant Tibbs getting scared by Jasper. They jump and react in the exact same way. Or how about Alice in Wonderland and Bambi? Two movies that seem to have nothing in common. One movie is about a baby deer who loses its parents and is forced to face its fears in the forest. And the other is about a young girl who falls down a rabbit hole and finds herself in a fantasy world. But check out this scene of a bird bathing. Disney didn't even bother to change the color of the bird or its animation. But yes, the background is a little tweaked. Alice in Wonderland and Pinocchio. In Pinocchio, we see a creepy octopus in what appears to be a dark part of the sea. While in Alice in Wonderland, the scene is more playful and the creepy octopus is replaced with a top-hatted man. But that's not the similarity I'm talking about. Just take a look at the fish in this scene. You'll notice that almost all the animation has been replicated. While recycling is done in minor scenes, it's much less noticeable than when it's done in a significant setting. But eagle-eyed fans are still able to weed out these moments. When Sir Ector accidentally hits his son, Sir Kay, on the head, it's something you've probably seen before. The scene was recycled from a film that was released just 2 years earlier, The 101 Dalmatians. The shorter one of the two puppy thieves, Horace, hits the taller thief, Jasper, over the head in exactly the same way as Sir Hector hits Kay. Reusing old animated sequences was not Disney's animation policy. However, they believed that if something works, stick to it. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Walt Disney was busy expanding his business, expanding into television, radio, merchandising, live action films, and especially amusement parks. Walt was preoccupied with all the other plans to take direct control of the animation department. All he does is make sure the story is up to Disney standards, while other smaller aspects are ignored. Veteran Disney animator Floyd Norman discussed this in an interview with Cartoon Hangover about reused animation in regards to Walt Disney.
I don't think he even noticed it. I don't think he thought much about it. I don't think he even noticed it. His mind was always on the big picture. His mind was always on the story and not so much the little production things that really didn't interest him all that much.
Other directors were put in charge of larger projects, each making a movie in their own way. But one director in particular named Wolfgang "Wooly" Reitherman, one of Disney's 9 old men, thought, "We've done a scene like this in a movie before, haven't we? Let's go, reuse the work we've finished without wasting effort on a new set of designs." Every time the decision was made to go back and reuse a scene or sequence, animators had to visit the morgue, or Disney Archive as it is known today, and locate the scene or sequence that they have been instructed to use again. The animators will then trace the old footage with the characters from the new project and return the old footage to the morgue. This was probably used to save time and reduce costs because Disney films at the time didn't have the best animation quality compared to previous films. This may be because the inking process has slowed down in favor of copying drawings. In the same interview, Floyd Norman discussed the process and his thoughts on it.
A lot of time reworking this old material was almost more trouble than it was worth. First of all, you had to go dig it out, you had to find it, and then you had to see, well, how can I adapt it, how can I reuse it, which meant a lot of redrawing, a lot of moving stuff around to make it work. It would have been far more effective, at least in my opinion, to just animate it from scratch. It was done probably to save time, save money, although I don't think it saved much time and I don't think it saved much money, because it was more of a hassle to go dig this old footage out of the archive. It would have been easier to just sit down and animate a new scene than to go back and try to retrofit all this old stuff to something new. We're looking back to the 1960s and 70s when people weren't thinking how films would change, how media would change, and how people would be able to look at these various films and compare one film against the other.
Disney's habit of recycling cartoons slowly died down until the Disney Renaissance, when almost everything was just new footage. Today, however, with most Disney projects using only CGI, the only repurposing of content will be in large crowds where duplicate patterns can be seen with the naked eye, if you can spot them. If you liked our video, don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel for more videos like this one.